Hey, what's up guys? This is HyperDark19 bringing you a new deck profile on my updated Quickdraw Turbo deck list. I know I've been beating this deck to death for a while now, but it's one of my favorite decks, as I've said before. It's a lot of fun to play. Before I go into the deck profile, let me just explain a couple things about this deck. First off, it is hyper aggressive. If you're trying to play defensively with this deck, you're probably going to lose. The only good cards in there for that kind of thing is Battle Fader. So you want to make sure you get to your negation cards like Heavy Storm and Royal Decree as soon as possible, and then go nuts. That's how this deck is played, that's how it runs best, and that's how you win games. First off, we have 3 copies of Junk Synchron. This guy is the all-star of the deck, brings back pretty much anything you can ditch from the graveyard, major pluses, is pretty much the glue that holds this entire deck together. 2 copies of Quickdraw Synchron, another one of the most important cards in this deck, makes playing a lot of the Synchron Warrior Synchros possible, and provides a discard outlet for a lot of your cards that really like to be in the graveyard, like Tuning Wear, Doppel Warrior, Kobold Hedgehog, etc. 1 copy of Unknown Synchron, only 1 copy because his effect pretty much makes it so only running 1 copy in your deck is viable. Great tuner, actually, a good release to boost up this deck. More special summonable tuners are always good. Being 1-star means easy access to Formula Synchron with the other cards in this deck. Another 1-star tuner, Turbo Synchron. Really the only reason this card is in the deck is for easier access to Formula, another target for a 1-for-1 or Road Warrior in the extra deck if you need a 1-star tuner out on the field. 1 copy of Debris Dragon. This card, much like Junk Synchron, brings back a lot of stuff from the graveyard that likes to have that done. A lot more limited usage in that it can only summon dragon synchro monsters, but still, very, very good card and very solid pick for this deck. We have 2 copies of Doppel Warrior. This, aside from Quickdraw and Junk, is probably one of the most important cards in this deck. It provides tokens, can be special summoned from the hand when something gets special summoned from your graveyard, which is pretty common in this deck, and just really allows you to make all kinds of synchro plays like nobody's business. 3 copies of Tuning Wear. Not only does this card provide variable levels and draw power, the combination with Machine Dupe, which is also in this deck, is insane. 2 copies of Kobold Hedgehog. I actually originally overlooked this card because I felt its limited usability kind of took away from any kind of usefulness it might have. That's actually not true, as it turns out. This card is really, really good and very useful, even if it can only be used once, just because it gives you the extra special summon from the graveyard to trigger for that Doppel Warrior, or the extra material you need to synchro into a bigger threat than you would be able to otherwise. 1 copy of Dandelion. I really don't have to go over how good this card is. Discarding with Quickdraw makes instant 2 tokens that you can use for synchro or anything else that you might want to do. 1 copy of Level Eater. The fact that this card isn't limited to once per turn and its effect is just totally insane. It makes for recurring Scrap Dragon Tribute, recurring Synchro Fodder, an attacker if you really need the 600 points to end the game. 1 copy of Synchron Explorer. This card is useful if you've used all your tuners, they're in the graveyard, and you need to bring one of them back for whatever reason, to trigger off a Doppel Warrior maybe, or just synchro. 3 copies of Battle Fader. This is one of the recent additions to this deck that I really hadn't thought of before. Because you run virtually no defense in this deck, this card is really a necessity. Not only does it block attacks that could potentially kill you, but it puts a monster on the field that you can then use for synchro fodder, and that's just really, really good. 1 copy of Sangan. Searches out pretty much every monster in the deck. Don't have much more to say about that. We'll go through the staples pretty fast here. We got 1 Monster Reborn, obviously. 1 Dark Hole, and again, good card. Don't really need to explain it. 1 Heavy Storm, because very important that you draw this card or Royal Decree, because in this deck, you hate back row. Back row is your worst enemy. You need to get rid of it before you can really go off with any kind of sense of security. Mind Control, because we're playing Synchro, and Mind Control is a broke-ass card. Reinforcements of the Army searches for Doppel Warrior and Junk Synchron. Like I said, 2 of the key players in this deck, having their own search card just for them is pretty helpful. Foolish Burial, pretty obvious why this is in here. Dumps anything. You can get pluses off their effects like Dandelion, Doppel Warrior, Kobold Hedgehog, Tuning Wear, whatever. It's just a great card to have inside. 1 copy of Pot of Avarice for reloading synchros that have gone to the graveyard, reloading your graveyard if it's too full, draw more cards. continue, either make a play or continue on with the one you're already making. It's just a good card. What can I say? One copy of 1-for-1 gives you easy access to a lot of the great level 1 monsters in this deck, like Tuning Wear, Level Eater, and the level 1 tuners. Easy formula summons, easy synchro summons for other monsters as well, if possible. One copy of Machine Duplication. I only run one copy because Tuning Wear is the only target in this deck, but just the getting off the Tuning Wear Machine Dupe combo once makes the whole thing worth it because it's just so cool. 2 copies of Tuning, Erota specifically for the Synchron Tuner monsters. Doesn't matter which one you need. Junk, Quickdraw, Turbo, Unknown, anything. You can just get them right to your hand with this baby. And you mill a card, which sometimes is good, sometimes it's bad. Most of the time it's pretty good. For the draw engine, we have 2 copies of Hand Destruction. This card can be a -1 overall in terms of card presence at first, and you are allowing your opponent to discard and draw too, which isn't really that great to be letting them do. But this deck needs some kind of draw power, and it needs a way to get bad, dead cards out of the hand and into the graveyard where they're much more useful. 2 copies of Enemy Controller. I chose this card over Creature Swap because it's quick play. You can play it at instant speed, stop your opponent from potentially OTKing you or something else if you can tribute a monster off. Also makes for great synchro plays. Tribute tokens that you really don't need to steal their monsters to synchro with them. Classy. And the only trap cards I run in this deck, 3 copies of Royal Decree. Like I said, back row is your worst enemy with this deck. Having Royal Decree out on the field means you can pretty much ignore your opponent's back row for the most part, and that's what you really need for this deck to shine. 1 copy of Formula Synchron, Draw Power, Synchro Tuner. We all know how good Formula is. TG Hyper Librarian. This card is so critical to this strategy, I can't even tell you. The effect of drawing a card every time you synchro summon is just crazy. It's imperative that you summon this card as quickly as possible with this deck, and there's a lot of ways to do it. Ally of Justice Cataster, great card, destroys anything, except Darks, but what are you going to do? Junk Warrior, because the Doppel Junk combo makes this thing a 3100 beater, and that's nothing to snort at. Drill Warrior, if you don't manage to OTK with this deck, this card is pretty much your other option in terms of winning the game. Properly using this card, you can stall out your opponent pretty good with things like Level Eater, Dandelion, things like that. This is one of my favorite cards ever. I genuinely believe it's one of the most broken cards in the game, given its effects. You should definitely play it in this deck, what can I say? 1 copy of Iron Chain Dragon. Now, this is a card I'm kind of iffy on, but it's mostly due to Debris Dragon being in the deck. If you're going for a level 6 dragon synchro, you have to, and you don't have any targets, that would kind of suck. So Iron Chain is really the only option. Kind of a subpar card. I really want to put Shooting Star Dragon in this deck, and I might eventually take this card out for a Shooting Star Dragon, but for now, it's better to be safe than sorry. Black Rose Dragon, Field Nuke, very easy to make with this deck, can turn the entire game around. With Formula, it's an instant speed Field Nuke, which is even better. Junk Archer, this card is the bane of Xyz monsters, mainly Zen Mines and Gachi Gachi, because not only does it get rid of them for a turn, and you can direct attack maybe, but when they come back they have no materials and their effects are pretty much useless. Junk Berserker, this card is one of the new additions to the extra deck. Its effects really aren't always that useful, although they can be at times, but this is mostly just another powerhouse card at level 7 that can help with your OTKs. 1 copy of Stardust Dragon. While this card does get outclassed in attack by a lot of cards in the current meta, its effect is still really hard to beat. It's great protection if you don't have Heavy Storm or Royal Decrees. Scrap Dragon, because it's a dragon, it's 2800 attack, there's always tons of stuff to sacrifice for its effect, it's just a great card. Junk Destroyer, because like Scrap Dragon, it blows stuff up, and it's really good at doing what it does. 1 copy of Road Warrior. I had really often overlooked this card because it took 3 monsters to summon it, but now with the way this deck plays, this is very, very easy to play, and it's actually one of the key synchros that you want to bring out pretty early, just because its summoning ability and its 3000 attack make it a pretty formidable force to be reckoned with. Mistworm. This card is pretty much the replacement Trishula now that that card was banned. Bouncing 3 cards is always good, especially when it does it at a speed the bottomless trap hole can't stop. With Formula, this can be at instant speed, and playing this during your opponent's turn really wrecks their game. That's it for the deck profile. Hope you enjoyed it. Give this deck a try. I love it. I know you'll love it too. Any kind of comments, put them down at the bottom. Suggestions for the deck, anything you want. Until next time, thanks a lot, guys. This is HyperDark19 signing out.